The glass conference room on the 47th floor of Meridian Tower felt colder than the altitude warranted. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a late October Manhattan sky the color of wet steel, rain streaked the panes in slow, deliberate lines. Inside, the long ebony table reflected the soft blue glow of 12 open laptops and the faces of 12 people who had spent the last 18 months living inside spreadsheets, prototypes, and red-eye flights to make this moment possible. I stood at the head of the table in the charcoal suit I'd bought specifically for today, single-breasted, no pocket square, nothing flashy. My name tag still read Interim Chief Commercial Officer, guest. I had been interim for 14 months because the board refused to make anything permanent until the deal closed. Fair enough. Today that changed. Spread across the table were the final signature packets. 3 bound sets, each containing 1,847 pages of legalese that boiled down to one number: $4.17 billion. The acquiring party, Kestrel Global, had flown in their entire C-suite. Their CEO, a silver-haired Swiss named Lucas Brandt, sat directly opposite me, fountain pen already uncapped. Beside him, his general counsel tapped a stylus against an iPad, impatient. Our side looked like we'd just run a marathon and won. My VP of Finance wiped sweat from his brow with a monogrammed cuff. The head of legal kept rereading clause 14.3 as though it might sprout new poison overnight. Our lead engineer, 29, still wearing yesterday's hoodie under his blazer, stared at the ceiling like he was praying the servers wouldn't crash one final time. Everything was aligned. Regulatory nods from Brussels and Washington had landed at 3:14 a.m. The press release was embargoed until 4 p.m. Eastern. The wire instructions were triple verified. I had rehearsed the closing remarks so many nights I could deliver them in my sleep: gratitude to the team, respect to Kestrel, a nod to Meridian's next chapter under new ownership. Then I would sign, Brandt would sign, we would shake hands, and I would finally exhale for the first time since the day I walked into this building as a 31-year-old associate director with nothing but student debt and blind ambition. The door opened. She entered without knocking. 24 years old. Platinum bob cut sharp enough to draw blood. Black cashmere turtleneck, tailored white trousers, Louboutins the color of fresh arterial blood. No badge. No laptop. Just presence. Victoria Langford. The CEO's only daughter. Heir apparent. Recently returned from 2 years finding herself in Ibiza, Mykonos, and various boardrooms where her father's name opened doors she never had to knock on. She had been appointed special advisor to the executive committee 6 weeks ago. Title vague, authority vague, yet somehow every decision that crossed her desk acquired an invisible red line through it if she didn't like the font. She stopped 3 steps inside the room. All conversation ceased. Even the rain seemed to hush. Victoria, I said, keeping my voice level. We're in final execution. If this is urgent. It is. She held up a slim folder, cream vellum, embossed with the Meridian crest. This is effective immediately. She placed the folder in front of me, open to the first page. Termination notice. Employee, Adrian Hale. Position, Interim Chief Commercial Officer. Reason, unsatisfactory performance/breach of fiduciary duty. Effective date, today, 11:47 a.m. Approved by Victoria Langford, Special Advisor, per delegated authority from Langford Meridian Holdings Trust. I read it twice. The room read it over my shoulder. Brandt cleared his throat. Excuse me. Is this a joke? Victoria didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed on me. Pale green, unblinking. No joke. Mr. Hale's employment is terminated. As such, he no longer has authority to execute any transaction on behalf of Meridian. The head of legal stood so fast his chair rolled backward. Victoria, with respect, the delegation of authority resolution passed last Thursday explicitly states that the interim CCO retains full signatory power until closing or until superseded by a majority board vote. Which it has been. She produced a second sheet from the folder: board resolution, timestamped 11:32 a.m. today. Signatures, her father's, electronic, 3 trust-appointed directors, all Langford family retainers, and miraculously, herself as proxy. I felt the air leave the room. Brandt leaned forward. We have spent 9 figures in due diligence. We have airplanes on standby. We have a signed letter of intent countersigned by your father personally. This, he tapped the folder, is not acceptable. Victoria's smile was small, surgical. Then perhaps you should have read the change of control provisions more carefully. Section 8.2b allows the controlling shareholder to remove any officer deemed unfit in the 30-day window prior to closing without triggering a material adverse effect clause. My father exercised that right this morning. On what grounds? I asked. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Failure to disclose material risks in the integration plan. Specifically, the unresolved IP dispute with Nexlify that you personally decided to classify as low probability in the disclosure schedules. That exposure is now north of $380 million. You buried it. I stared at her. That assessment came from outside counsel. We disclosed the existence of the claim. The probability was their opinion, not mine. Yet you signed the certificate representing that all disclosures were complete and not misleading. She slid another page across the table. My signature stared back at me, blue ink, dated 3 weeks ago. That makes it your liability. The room fractured. Our CFO whispered, Jesus Christ, Adrian. Brandt stood. We're walking. No signatures, no wire, no deal. You can explain to your shareholders why Meridian just lost its only credible exit in the last decade. Victoria didn't flinch. You're welcome to walk. But know that we already have a bridge facility lined up from Sovereign Capital at a slightly higher multiple. They're less fastidious about disclosure schedules. Brandt's face darkened. You're bluffing. Call your pilot and find out how long it takes to file a lawsuit in Delaware Chancery Court. I'll wait. Silence stretched so thin it hummed. I looked around the table. My team, people who had trusted me with their careers, their mortgages, their children's college funds, looked like they'd been gut-punched. The engineer was crying silently, shoulders shaking. The VP of Finance kept shaking his head, slow, mechanical. I turned back to Victoria. You could have waited 43 minutes, I said quietly. 43 minutes and the ink would have been dry. Your father would have had his payout. The employees would have had their equity vest. The company would have had a future. Her expression didn't soften. My father is dying, Mr. Hale. Glioblastoma. 6 months if he's lucky. He wants to see the number in his account before the seizures get worse. He doesn't care about 43 minutes. He cares about certainty. I felt something cold uncoil in my chest. And you think firing me on the eve of closing creates certainty? I think it creates control. She leaned in slightly. You were never going to be permanent. You were hired to get us across the finish line. You did. Now you're a liability. So you go. I looked down at the signature page, still waiting for my pen. Then at the termination notice. Then at her. You're making the biggest mistake of your life, I said. She laughed, short, crystalline. Funny. That's what the last 3 interim executives said before they left with 7-figure severance packages. Yours will be generous. Assuming you signed the separation agreement without contesting the for cause language. I picked up the termination folder. Felt the weight of it. 26 pages of carefully worded destruction. Then I set it down. I'm not signing anything today. Her eyes narrowed. Then security will escort you out. And we'll pursue clawback of every bonus you've received in the last 18 months. Do it.